So when a short guy stands up for himself, that's a syndrome now? Think about it. When a tall guy acts confident, he's a leader. But when a short guy does the same thing, suddenly it's short man syndrome. Everybody tells short guys, just be confident, bro. But the second we actually are, society mocks us and labels us as toxic, insecure, aggressive. So which is it? The Napoleon Complex isn't a diagnosis. It's a weapon. And today I'm going to explain how it's used to gaslight short men into silence, and the real reason why this label even exists in the first place. Now, as a 162 centimeter, 5'3.5" manlet, I've had my fair share of experiences like these. Being belittled, dismissed or brushed aside, mocked, humiliated, or being called aggressive or insecure for standing up for myself, both online and in real life. I remember back in my senior year of high school, I had gone to a new school and I was trying to get social and meet people, and one of the things I tried to do was join in this landscaping cleanup day for the school grounds. And at that point in my life, I genuinely was overcompensating. I was so insecure. And I did manage to get very strong, and I felt like I was very capable, just as capable as any tall guy, and I wanted to prove to everyone that I was. Now, somebody's dad was like the supervisor of the area that I was working in, and he wanted somebody to pick up and haul this bucket full of mulch or something over to another part of the grounds. And he was standing right next to me, and I said, "Hey, I can do it. I'll do it for you." And he just pretended I didn't say anything. So I said it again. "Hey, excuse me, I can do that for you." No response, completely ignored, cold shoulder. Then this 6'3" tall rich kid, looked like a typical Chad. He comes by and the supervisor's like,
"Hey, so-and-so, what's your name? How you doing?"
Except he said his real name.
"You're big and strong. Can you carry this bucket over there for me?"
And the guy says,
"Yeah, sure, of course."
And I'm just sitting there like. Now, at that time in my life, I had developed a drinking problem to try and cope with these severe insecurities. And that night, I went home feeling so completely inferior and inadequate. I drank until I almost passed out because I couldn't stop thinking about the reason why he asked that other guy and ignored me is because he wanted a real man to do the job. And believe it or not, I had another bad experience at that school just a few weeks before. Before moving to this new school, I decided to shadow another student there, which means they kind of just give you a tour of the school and you follow them around for the day. So this preppy, popular kid, he's about 5 or 6 inches taller than me, he walks with me into this classroom to talk to the basketball coach. And the guy I went in there with says something, and he's like,
"Oh, yeah, love
and
it."
he's all friendly and happy and nice. And I tried to be polite and nice to this guy, and he just looked down at me with disgust. I tried to greet him. He goes,
"Nah."
And every time I saw that guy around school, every time I saw him interacting with anybody in a positive way, they were always tall. You might think, oh, this is all in your head. But think about it. He's a basketball coach. Basketball glorifies height. And this guy's tall. Of course, he probably has a superiority complex, and he sees anyone who's not tall as inferior. And I totally understand why, because you look down at them your whole life. Like,
"What are you capable of, Pipsqueak?"
And at my previous school, I actually bore witness to a situation where somebody was mocked for height insecurity. There was this big, tall, strong football player kid that all the girls obsessed over, and he didn't really have any problems with me, but I overheard him having a conversation with somebody about this other kid, and they were both talking about how short he was and how much of an inferiority complex he had and how he had short man syndrome. And that was the reason why, apparently, this kid would always square up to this guy and says, "Come on, let's go, let's fight. Like, come on, I can take you." And you know what this jock guy said? He said,
"Hell no, I'm not gonna fight you. I would beat your ass. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. That guy's just trying to overcompensate for his height and prove himself by challenging the biggest guy in the school."
And even though hearing that hurt my feelings and made me feel self-conscious about my height, it's situations like that where they actually vindicate the idea of a Napoleon complex. Because even though the Napoleon complex and short man syndrome is very often used as a way to invalidate and dismiss the very real problems that short guys face. It is obviously a real thing. It's just that it's overprescribed in every situation. And I've experienced this false accusation myself, but not in school. It was in a much more serious situation that involved my livelihood. Back in 2019, I had an office job, and I was just trying to go above and beyond to show that me as a college graduate am capable of more than they might think. And, perhaps deep down, that did come from a sense of insecurity. But what it really came from was an extreme drive and ambition. But people didn't see it that way, even though I had gotten over my height insecurities all the way back in 2015 and had actually learned to embrace my height, which I talked about in a different video called Why I Like Being Short. I'll link it in the description. But when I got my first performance review, my confidence wasn't celebrated. It was villainized and labeled as Napoleon Complex. Now, I told the full story of this disastrous job experience and toxic work environment in one of my recent videos where I discuss Heightism in the workplace. And I'll link that in the description also, as well as at the end. But it's not just in real life that we experience this gaslighting, prejudice, and dismissal. Having just spent 6 months building up the Chadlet maxing TikTok, I've experienced an endless stream of harassment, invalidation, dismissal, and gaslighting in comments on my videos on that page. Now, I'll be showing some of them here on screen. Now, if you're a short guy like me who's experienced the significant disadvantages that come along with being a male who's supposed to be big and strong and a provider and a protector and a leader and tower over everyone, the bullying, the mistreatment, and discrimination that comes along with being smaller than everyone else and being seen as an easy target, then you'll understand how insulting it is to read comments like these, blaming all your problems on your personality, assuming that the reason you're having problems is because you're just not confident. And the majority of the time, these criticisms are coming from tall men and women, people who have never even come close to experiencing this kind of treatment in their lives. And the worst part is that along with the mistreatment, almost every short man in existence has to go through an intense, painful period of body shaming and feelings of inferiority, growing up with media that praises size and height and portrays all the people in charge as tall and strong, to help them stand out from the plebs below them, portraying their bumbling sidekick as this tiny little manlet, showing all the girls looking up to and fawning over the big, tall, strong leader of the group. Growing up as a teenager, hearing girls make comments about guys' height, make fun of guys who are short, brutally reject short guys who ask them out. Don't you think it's enough that short guys already have to experience all that in their lives? What conclusion do you think they're going to come to? Even without any of the bullying or mistreatment or discrimination, they either will already be extremely depressed or they'll try and be in denial about it, and that's just another way of coping with the insecurity. Or, if they're lucky, they'll take my route, where they become so increasingly insecure, where they can no longer bear the burden of living. Some primal self-preservation gene will snap in their brain, and they'll go from wanting to try and be a big, strong, macho alpha male to embracing their position as beta at the bottom of the hierarchy and becoming a submissive masochist. And if you knew me in real life, you'd know that I'm a salesman. I'm very charismatic. Everywhere I go, people love me. But from my personal experience, that still has not changed the fully real fact that height discrimination and height bias don't just affect dating. They affect every aspect of life. If that doesn't prove these commenters wrong, then I don't know what will. Now, I've already explained how society mocks and pathologizes the confidence of short men, labeling us as toxic or insecure. But when a tall guy acts the same way, they say he's a great leader. This guy right here explains it better than I ever could.
How can you follow Joe Rogan? He's 5'6". What leader? If I was standing in front of Joe Rogan, I would think he disappeared. I would be like, where's my friend Joe Rogan? And someone would be like, way down there. I'd be like, where? No, like men are right here. Like, where's Joe Rogan? He speaks lies and he's short. Joe Rogan is not a leader. Like, if he was a king on a horse, if they hadn't invented booster seats, like, how would the soldiers have seen him?
So knowing that, of course society would label the confidence of tall men as leadership qualities and the confidence of short guys as insecurity and toxicity. Because we have a prehistoric, instinctual rejection and revulsion towards men who don't fit the masculine, dominant role that males are traditionally meant to fulfill. Why would a tribe listen to or choose someone as a leader who they have no reason to respect or fear? Someone they look down on like a child. And somewhere deep in our tribal instincts, short men know this too. And it's a hard thing to accept. So of course many of us will try to deny it and run from the truth. Of course we'll feel inadequate compared to someone who is obviously clearly superior to us. So there's no need to throw salt on the wound and kick us when we're already down by bullying us, exploiting us, and excluding us from opportunities. But we'll finish discussing the leadership issue in a future video. But this issue isn't just personal. It's systemic. But here's the deeper question. Why does this stereotype keep getting pushed? And who benefits from it? Why is a short man's confidence threatening enough that society has to invent a syndrome to shame it? And what does that reveal about tall privilege and power dynamics that we don't like to admit? And by the way, if you've ever been called out for Napoleon Complex or short man syndrome or told to just be confident, I'd like to hear your story in the comments. And if any of this resonates with you, hit the like button. It helps push this conversation out to more people who need to hear it. So where did this term, Napoleon Complex, come from? Well, I don't think it came from Abraham Lincoln. Way back in the 1800s, when Napoleon was really pissing off the Brits after his conquest of Europe and threatening their empire, they wanted to do everything they could to portray this guy as badly as possible to get everyone to join their army. So back then, they had the first newspapers and magazines, and they put all throughout there making fun of what else? His height. And if that's not further evidence of the historic, civilization-spanning phenomenon of height being a negative association and humiliating, submissive characteristic, they threw all short men under the bus for the rest of history by renaming what was an inferiority complex after this guy as a sort of social proof for the existence of this mindset. Basically, because of this propaganda, they sentenced all future generations of short men to lifetimes of increased scrutiny, judgment, prejudice, assumptions, and a way to invalidate the accomplishments of any short guy who managed to defy the odds and do something impressive with his life as being the result of some laughable syndrome. This mindset of height bias and prejudice propagates itself through media and cultural reinforcement. Here's an example of the consequences of that, and we call him the Bagel Guy. Play the clip.
Why is it okay for women to say, oh, you're 5 feet on dating sites? You should be dead? That's okay? You think I'm making that shit up? Everywhere I go, I get the same fucking smirk with the biting lip. Shut your mouth. You're not God or my father or my boss. You shut up too.
You shut the fuck
no,
up.
Go ahead and attack me, big.
Oh
my god. Oh my god. I just wanted bagels. Absolutely.
Oh, and a guy 3 times my size. Absolutely. That's okay.
Get to go.
No, you women need to stop being so fucked up.
Now, if you take a look at the comment section of a video like this, and you'll see the vast majority of people are piling on, insulting him, and making him into a joke, instead of asking what they should ask, and that's that, why did he snap? What did he go through in life that made him so sensitive and so on edge? How many forms of discrimination and prejudice, mistreatment, bullying, domination, and intimidation occurred in his life for him to reach the point of exploding? And on top of it, how many instances occurred that everyone around him just laughed at and turned into a joke or dismissed and invalidated Or even worse, blame it on him. Someone gets bullied, harassed, and exploited.
Well, as long as it's a short guy, that makes it funny. We don't care how they feel, because they're men. They should be tough and just take it. Take the abuse. They're worthless anyway. They don't matter.
That clearly was just the last straw for him. If you compare how society treats short men to how it treats other marginalized groups, there's a serious elephant in the room, an elephant that seems to only be visible to the people who are suffering the consequences of it. When it comes to things like homophobia, transphobia, racism, sexism, even religious or cultural bias, there has been an unprecedented swing of the pendulum from one extreme all the way to the other. Every last piece of subtle whitewashing or cultural appropriation, microaggressions, media portrayals, they've all been scrutinized and dissected to the absolute max. Society's responded with its own overcompensation of sympathy, reparations, policy changes, and pressuring of the media to become sensitive to all of their issues. But when I bring up the idea of just having a law against discrimination based on height, I get comments like these. So why does every other marginalized group get handled with kid gloves to the point where any little mistake that somebody makes can ruin their life, but height prejudice is invalidated and dismissed to the point where they're not even willing to consider letting us propose a law against height-based prejudice impacting our opportunities and pay in the workplace, something that these other marginalized groups got decades ago. And if you grew up watching Disney or any of that crap, you would know that there are more offensive portrayals of short men in the media than any other marginalized group. Go back and check. Portrayals that were enough to sow the seeds of self-hatred, internalized body shaming, and a life-ruining inferiority complex. On top of that, all the injustice we face, it isn't just brushed aside. It's made into the butt of a joke. Personally, I don't care about people making jokes about it and all that stuff. I believe in free speech. But it's not right for everything else to be policed to the max while we have this one marginalized group of people that is treated the absolute opposite way, all for the sadistic pleasure and entertainment of the elite and everyone else who's just there to watch and mock, just like the audience in the Coliseum. Now, learning something like that, you might go crazy if you don't become a masochist like me. And all of this highlights the existence of tall privilege and how it's related to an elite agenda. Tall people are respected more, promoted more, seen as more credible, more capable. As much as people try to pretend like we're all equal and say that,
"Oh, I'm tall, I've got my problems, you've got your problems, everybody's the same."
it's clear and obvious to anyone with any critical thinking skill that there are no downsides to being superior in size and stature, except for having to consume more calories and take longer to grow and have it cost more to buy clothes and need larger this, larger that. All that says to me was that size and stature require wealth, prosperity, and status to reach their full potential, to provide them the resources in abundance that they need. But as elites know, the privileges provided by such stature have been enough to compound and magnify the advantages that they have over the 99%, more and more in each generation. These are the reasons why a progressively widening wealth gap has developed between tall people and short people. Now, there will always be statistical outliers and anomalies, people like Jeff Bezos or this or that defy the odds. But the numbers don't lie. The upper class is vastly taller than the lower class for obvious reasons that I've gone into in other videos. I'll link them in the description. They even dominate politics. And these elites run these corporations that control our food supply and market these unnatural products and processed foods as cheap because they're profiting by making it cheaper for people to exist in an unnatural state and using that power to experiment on those they control. I believe they have an agenda to monopolize height, consolidate it into their own subspecies of elite superhuman, while they stunt the growth of all their underlings to make damn certain everybody can tell at one glance who rules, until standing before an elite makes you feel nothing but submission and fear to have the financial and sociopolitical power they've always had physically manifested over generations into a permanent physical branding of the body, the ultimate status symbol, to allow one to be distinguished, to stand above all. And it's already becoming a marker of status. It's just too dark for most people to face and accept. So when people like me bring it up, they'd prefer to dismiss it and pretend it doesn't exist. Heightism isn't a joke. It traps short men in cycles of ridicule, self-hatred, doubt, and lost opportunity. Our lived experience and daily observations are completely denied and blamed on our projected insecurities, even though people like me who don't have those insecurities also experience it. We're told to just be confident by those same people and then punished when we are by being accused of having short man syndrome or being aggressive, to beat short men down into accepting our position as submissive serfs. Napoleon Complex is not a syndrome. It's a double standard. And until people admit that, it'll keep being used to gaslight short men into silence. And if you're interested in seeing how these issues play out in the real world, check out this video where I share my full experience of heightism in the workplace.